Welcome into your post game of 4th and 5, sponsored by Ortho Arkansas. And I'm going to be honest with you, game's still going on as we speak in the middle of the fourth quarter. But I think we've already seen what we needed to see out of this football game. And it just really comes down to a simple fact. And I'll break this down a little bit more, but Ole Miss, hands down, the better football team, outclassed at every single spot on that football field, offensively, defensively, special teams. And just when it comes to the talent, I think what we saw last week with Mississippi State, and we tried to kind of warn you here on 4th and 5 to kind of really put that into perspective and not put too much, into that performance we had offensively against Mississippi State, because we said Mississippi State was just awful. What we saw today and what our guys saw today is Ole Miss, what they offer up front, that's the standard. And if we want to be able to compete year in and year out here in the SEC, that's what you have to compete against. And this was the first time I actually saw our team. They just seem timid. Another word for that is just a little scared and intimidated. And you hate to see that. Now, they got some dudes over there, Ole Miss. There's no doubt about it, and have to give them credit from top to bottom, especially defensively. It was very impressive to see our centers and our guards and our whole offensive line just completely outmatched. I don't really know if there's much you can do schematically when it comes to an offensive game plan to combat from that. And even when we did have our small moments, our small windows, which are very, very few and far between, Talon got back to what he got used to when he first started in the first couple games in the season. Balls are late. Now, I'm not very confident in getting the ball out, sometimes tucking and running. And I have to be fair. The windows were so tight against Ole Miss, but the opportunities were still there. That's just big boy ball that we saw today. And unfortunately, if you're a Razorback fan, we just saw how far off we are from competing at that level. And you're trying to go back to these other games. We played against Tennessee. When we played against A&M, it seemed like we were there and able to keep those guys off the scoreboard. What we saw in those games was inexperience from the quarterback position. A&M played a freshman quarterback against us. Tennessee played a freshman quarterback against us. Our DBs getting all the praise in the world, rightfully so at that time, but we even said right here on 4th and 5, we're gonna run into some issues when we can play against a quarterback who can throw that ball. Because even in those games against Tennessee and Texas A&M, we benefited from lack of experience at the quarterback position from the opposing team. Not the case against Ole Miss, also not the case against LSU. So obviously when it comes to our secondary, exposed. And I think LSU was the team to expose them. And ever since then, teams have been capitalizing on that. Even against Mississippi State, they had all the opportunities in the world to put at least 3 more touchdowns on the board, but they moved the ball up and down over 400 total yards of offense from one of the worst teams in the SEC. And that kind of set the plate for me of thinking we need to be extremely worried about what Ole Miss is capable of doing. And so still, that's just my first initial thoughts. You have to tune in Monday because I've already seen about 10 to 15 plays that are just driving me crazy, and you won't believe it, but I still have to go back and watch the tape to get a real assessment of this football game. But Monday's breakdown, it's going to be another tough one. Y'all know I'm going to be fair. That's just what we do. But I will say this. I don't have to watch film to figure this out. That belt, that when we score touchdowns, get rid of that. I don't want to see that damn belt one more time this year. Things like that and elements like that, I believe, are earned. And from the performance that we had as a team last year up until this year, I get you try to create some element of excitement for your team, but it was such a bad look. I believe when they had 42 points and then we ended up scoring and it was 17-42, and you see the team celebrating, clapping at the crowd, go grabbing the belt on the sideline, just complete lack of situational awareness right there, and not being able to read the room. Stuff like that is earned. Then you go back and look at a clip of Ole Miss with the fire hydrant blowing smoke and all that stuff, and their whole team just dancing. And the thing about it is, what should be embarrassing if you're a football team, and this is in the middle of the third quarter this happens, they made sure they got everyone from all across the sideline to meet them at the 50-yard line on their sideline, because they wanted to make sure that the TV saw it and they had a chance to dance, party on your own home field. And that's tough. And the unfortunate thing about it, I didn't see not one player except for Debinion. I really do like the way Debinion responded. I thought he tried his best to light a fire under the team after we kept on seeming to be kind of scared here and scared there. But outside of that, if you don't have a collective team effort to see something like that and go out there the next series and forget the playbook, forget all this, but just play with a sense of like, we're not going to stand for that. All right, let's go ahead and turn this into a dogfight and at least be physical. You can at least bring that to the table. But I didn't see any of that. So an extremely poor performance still up until this point. I don't know how the rest of the game turned out, but you're going to see it here in the graphic just in a second. Tune in Monday. I'm telling you, it's going to be quite the film review. Appreciate y'all watching 4th and 5.